So, then we ask, what then is education? You understand? How is this to be brought about? What is the function of a teacher, the educator? What is his relationship to the student? And what is his relationship to the parent? You're following all this? I hope, are we meeting each other? Let's begin with, what is the relationship of the educator with the student? What is his relationship to the student? The speaker, K, because when he goes to India, he spends practically a month in each place of these schools, talking with the students, with the teachers, and all the whole school together. So he knows, we've been talking endlessly for the last 52 years about education. And so I'm asking, you as parents, you as educators, what is the relationship of an educator, the teacher, to the student? Is the relationship based on giving information from a status as a teacher? You understand? Status. He knows and the other fellow doesn't know, which is a fact. And so his relationship to the student is merely that of giving information, knowledge of a particular subject to the student. So he has really no relationship with the student. But when the educator steps down from his platform, from his status, and begins to establish a relationship with the student, in the sense that the teacher is concerned not only with the technological knowledge, but with the whole psychological structure, but also what kind of food he eats, what kind of clothes he wears, how he behaves, how he talks, how he eats, how he walks. Do you understand? All this is part of the relationship between the teacher and the student. So, there is no teacher separate from the taught. Am I making? The teacher isn't merely the one who gives information, but the one who is so deeply concerned with the student, which means he is concerned with himself as well as with the student. That is, if I may explain a little more, if you will permit me, the student comes to the school conditioned, right? Already conditioned by the parents, by his friends, by the neighbor, and so on. He's conditioned. And the teacher is also conditioned, right? Both the educator and the one to be educated are both conditioned, right? So, the responsibility of a good teacher is to explain to the student that we're both conditioned, right? if he can explain it in different ways, it's comparatively easy. And see, I'm conditioned as an educator, and so are you. So let us, in talking over together, you understand? In discussing, in going in dialogue with each other, when we are out for a walk and so on, explore this conditioning. You understand? So that it is a constant relationship with each other. I wonder if I'm making something clear. We are trying this, please, in Brockwood in India, where one of the new principals coming to being, with whom we've been talking a great deal. We're trying this so that there is no division psychologically between the teacher and the student, which means the teacher cares for the student, cares in the profound sense of the word, affection, all that. Am I making this clear somewhat? What we are trying to do, what we want to do, what we will do. If not, it's not worth trying. You understand? Because there are millions of other schools. So that's one of our problems. Not our problem, that's a human problem. The other problem is, will the parent, who is heavily conditioned with his beliefs, with his ambitions, lack of time to be with the children, care for the children, all the rest of it. And the mother, too, has very little time for them, because in modern society, both the father and the mother go out to earn more money, to have more cars and more something else. I don't, God knows. So they have very little relationship with these children. So will the parents also be concerned with the total development of their children and of themselves, with the help of the teachers altogether? You understand the question? Are you following? Are we communicating with each other somewhat? So, and the other problem is, to relate history, I'm taking that as an example, as a factual movement, to relate it so that the child or the student understands the meaning, the full meaning of history. You understand? If I'm a teacher of history, God forbid, so I'm not a teacher of history. If I'm a teacher of history, how am I to teach him the full meaning of history? You understand? The full significance of history. Not the kings and the wars and the dates of wars, what general histories are. But I want him to understand the story of man, which is history, right? I wonder if you're meeting each other. The story of man. I want to tell him about that. Not only the factual kings and queens and the presidents and the wars and all the rest of it, but also I want him to see the extraordinary story of man who has grown, you follow? All that. How am I to teach him that? I don't know if you ever thought about it. Few of us have already discussed this point here with the parents and the educators. How is an educator to teach history, not of a particular country, of a particular group of people or community, but the global history of man? Are we meeting each other? If I was that teacher, educator, I would proceed this way. Sorry. Because that student is the embodiment of total humanity. Right? You understand this? I wonder if you want. We said in the talks here, the world is you and you are the world. Right? That's a absolute truth to me. It may not be to you, but it is a complete, irrevocable, inviolable fact. And so is that student. He is the world, and the world is him. Because he is going to suffer, go through all the mill and the travail of human beings, right throughout the world. So in him is the history of man. You understand what I'm saying? Oh, come on, sir. Huh? Do we understand this? Good. I'm so glad some of it. Yes. So, I would say now, together we're going to learn the story of man, which is you. I would spend a great deal of time about that. How to read the history of man, which is you. The book, the content of that book, which is you. So if we can read that book, that story of man, which is himself, which is the student, which is the teacher, which is the parent, which is the man, human being, then also I would go into the question of wars, the specialized communities, America, England, the division, why the division takes place, all the rest of it. So that he learns the history of man through himself, not through a book, not through some psychologist, professor, philosopher, and all the rest of it. So he'll be an authentic man. You understand? I wonder if you're getting this.
Yes.
He'll not be a second-hand man or woman as we are, but he will be the total human being. That's if I was a teacher in a school, that's how I would approach history. And if I was talking about mathematics, which is a little more complex problem, I would be concerned with order. Right? Mathematics, part of it is very orderly. Right? Right, sir? Are there some mathematicians here? It's very orderly. Higher mathematics, deeper, going into very higher things, it may be rather confused, uncertain, unclear. But the general mathematics is order. So if I were a teacher of mathematics, I would talk to him about order. You understand? Order in daily life. How he behaves, how he eats, how he talks. All these are very, very important. Consideration of others, politeness, which in America doesn't exist. Sorry, forgive me if I'm saying this. There is no respect for anything. So, order, consideration, how one behaves, how one talks, how one walks. And out of that comes naturally respect for each other. So order in his room. You understand? So order in his clothes and so on and so on. So I would begin with that, so that he understands order. Not impose discipline. I wonder, have you understand something? Because together, the student and I are concerned with order, which means punctuality, which means turning up meals at the correct time, and so on. And I will talk a great deal about that, and introduce algebra and all the rest of it. So that in himself, he's bringing order out of this chaos without discipline, which means compulsion, reward, punishment, marks, you're a good boy, encouraging. All that is so irrelevant, which hasn't, they have had discipline, all the schools, beaten and all the rest of it. It has not created a different human being. So that is how I would, if I was a teacher, I hope the two subjects and other subjects I go into. So that my relationship to the student is not that of an elder brother or a teacher or somebody outside, but together we are learning. I believe the word school comes from the word leisure. Leisure implies a mind which is not occupied. Not occupied with books, family, problems, just not occupied. It is only when the mind is not occupied, then you can learn. But if it's already occupied, crammed full of complexities, it can't learn in the deeper sense of the word. So, in a school of this kind, there would be leisure. Not what to do what you like. Have leisure to sit and look. I wonder if you understand all this. Doesn't matter, we'll go into it. So that's our problem. That's the problem of education if one is deeply concerned with humanity, with each other, as an educator and the person to be educated.